We are uncomfortable with the city hall, a symbol of government of the city of South African sovereignty, as we've said, being turned into the cultural center of another country.
If we have a political divide, it should not come to play and we should be overshadowed by DA interest in politics.
Iran is a theocratic dictatorship. We don't have a significant trading relationship with Iran.
What do you make, though, Aaron, of the concern by the Democratic Alliance, for instance, that this is going to complicate the relationship that we have with the U.S.? You are very well aware that the U.S. has taken issue with what they think is the close relationship that South Africa has with Iran.
Guys, so Celia Brinks from the DA, especially from the Shwane wing, is coming, hitting our TV screens once more. And this is in light of the fact that really in these really trying times for South Africa, the Pretoria City Hall, all right? And these are some of the things that makes me enjoy South African politics a lot. So it says that the Pretoria City Hall is up for renovations, so to speak, and probably up for grabs in terms of business opportunities and giving it out for certain, kind of investments or refurbishing anyway. Celia Brinks is angry in a way, but probably worried, as it were, that the ANC thinks that it might be wise to give out the Pretoria City Hall to Iran, especially the embassy of Iran, to build, structures that promote the cultural activities of the Iranian state, all right? The ANC, on the other hand, thinks that, well, this building, yes, it's actually probably a historical building and all of that. But, if we open it up for maybe investors or other kinds of business interests, so to speak, to deploy their investment power to turn it into a way to produce jobs and increase jobs in that city there of Shwane, probably it could be an advantage for the people and promote jobs, especially in the wake of these tariffs that will be hitting South Africa, 30% tariffs and all of that. Celia Brink is of the opinion that he argues that Iran is a theocratic dictatorship, and the US especially is aggrieved presently by South Africa's alignment, or what it thinks is South Africa's alignment with Iran. And if you remember in my last video where Thabo Mbeki was trying to really connect these dots, Thabo Mbeki helps us understand that the US thinks that when the South Africans argue that they are trying to fight for the liberation of Palestine from what they believe is Israeli oppression, especially within the context of an apartheid style oppression, so to speak, what the US is hearing is that the South Africans seem to be in support of Hamas. All right. So even though, many probably ANC officials, although I know the EFF left wing anyway, are actually of the opinion that, they stand for the cause of the Palestinians. What the Americans are hearing is that South Africa is aligning itself to Hamas. And if there's a possible alleged relationship between Hamas and Iran, that positions South Africa closely in close ties with Iran. This is the Trump's regime's reading of essays. South Africa stands with the Palestinian cause, to the point where we saw that South African lawyers actually took Israel to the ICJ. That's something Trump seems also not able to get ahead or beyond, or probably forgive. I don't know. Anyway, like you saw the journalist in the newsroom yesterday, Tony argues that regardless of what South Africa does, Trump is bent on punishing South Africa. Probably these are some of the readings. So Celia Brinks is of the opinion that in this really critical time, when South Africa is really trying to repair its relationship with the US, having such a historical monument as the Pretoria City Hall, handing it over, especially even though it will be open for bids, but giving it to the Iranian embassy in South Africa, which I think they've expressed interest. The Iranian embassy has actually expressed interest to, so to speak, deploy their investment power to transform this city hall as a leverage, a vehicle to constantly promote Iranian cultural activities. All right, I saw this also in Ghana during my PhD studies when I studied the Rawlins Revolution in 1979. Iran as well actually had really close ties with Ghana during this time, and they had these buildings that were set up to promote Iranian cultural activities. I think this probably is a foreign strategy by the regime in Iran, so to speak. So the Pretoria City Hall now seems to be the position where the Iranian embassy or the Iranians wish to situate a center of cultural excellence, so to speak, in South Africa. And only God knows, only God knows what the American reaction to that would likely be and all of that. Celia brings the DAs of the perspective that South Africa has to really tread cautiously in these really trying times. Now that it has this really failed, or not failed, probably broken, problematic relationship with the US. The ANC, on the other hand, doesn't really think that such an investment would actually probably continue this brokered relationship, because they argue that whatever decision they take would be in the best interest of South Africa, even if it steps probably on some toes or others. The major goal is what would benefit the people of South Africa, what benefits South Africa the most, and all of that. And that's the major clash we are seeing right now in the city of Tshwane. We know that Celia Brinks has a really passionate relationship with Tshwane, especially when he was kicked out as was it premier at the time, and Nabisi Moya became the new city mayor. But at that, this Pretoria City Hall, I think, would be another really major clashing point, especially between the DA and the ANC, even though we know that the Action SA seems to be heading things now in Tshwane, but the DA and ANC are getting ready for another new clash that might end up pulling in the United States and Iran around this whole debate on what to do with the Pretoria City Hall, which Celia Brinks argues is a historical, deeply historically meaningful monument for the South Africans that actually also even frame the sovereignty of the South African Republic. Now, to lead that out, or probably to give that out as a way to another foreign national to build its own cultural activities in South Africa, the DA sees this as a problem. And let's quickly listen to Celia Brinks and this ANC rep really lash out at each other in their arguments on whether this would be a smart move by the government of the day, or whether it will continuously lead to the deteriorating relationship, especially between South Africa and the US, but also what kind of relationship will be built up between South Africa and Iran going forward. And share your thoughts in the comments.
Welcome back. The Democratic Alliance is opposed to the possible sale or lease of the Pretoria City Hall to the Iranian embassy. This follows reports that the city of Tshwane received a letter from the embassy expressing interest to acquire the building. The DA's Tshwane leader Celia Brinks joins us now together with Aaron Maluleka, who is the ANC caucus member. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you for making time for us. Celia, let me start with you. First of all, the hall, or this building that we're talking about, how long has it been vacant for and why?
So in about 2013, 2014, there were renovations to the City Hall, and it was an irregular undertaking. It was messed up. Significant damage was done to the City Hall, rendering it unsuitable for daily use. And unfortunately, the fact that the city's financial position has been relatively weak has meant that successive administrations could not give money to completing the work. But this is a highly valuable historical building. It's got an organ that is one of the biggest in Southern Africa. It's got great historical value. And indeed, as a city hall, it is a sign of the sovereignty of our country and of our city.
Yeah.
And if renovations, which have to happen, need to take place there, it should certainly not be the city handing it over to a foreign government or donating the space for a cultural center of Iran.
Aaron, the argument that has been advanced is that the embassy wants to build Iranian restaurants, they want a museum in there, a library in the hall, which would generate economic opportunity for the city. Where do you stand on this as the ANC?
I could earlier struggle to hear Celia, but I can hear you clearly, Clement. We support the bed building committee. It's a submayoral committee appointed by the executive mayor to look at rejuvenation of the CBD space. And it's a project that we believe that it will create economic injection, but also make sure that the CBD of Tshwane works beyond the working hours. And the subcommittee has availed different derelict buildings that needs to be taken over for investment. And we have a different memorandum of understanding with different cities from different embassies. You know that we're hosting 132 embassies here in the capital city. And from time to time, we have roundtable engagements to avail our investment book to these different embassies. And Iranian embassy, like many other, embassies, have shown interest either on the buildings or on the land asset that we have. But obviously, MMC Morodi took them on a tour, not necessarily to finalize an agreement on the city hall, but obviously to say we have land within the precinct of the city hall that offer derelict buildings. There's a fire station behind the city hall. There's also land that is also closer to the city hall that can create opportunities for business investment. Therefore, we are in no position to announce that there's an agreement with the Iranian embassy around the city hall. But we also have the regulation, Clement, on how we dispose of our assets, and that is going to be overseen by council. And there's a municipal asset transfer regulation that explains the whole entire value chain of disposing of our assets, and we can should change that process.
What do you make, though, Aaron, of the concern by the Democratic Alliance, for instance, that this is going to complicate the relationship that we have with the U.S.? You are very well aware that the U.S. has taken issue with what they think is the close relationship that South Africa has with Iran. Are you not worried as the ANC in Tshwane that this, as the DA says, would complicate that relationship?
We will not become spokespersons of Action SA, but you know, Clement, that as the African National Congress, we have a relationship with Iran. And we are also circumspect of the global politics that are currently at play. And I was listening to you with the Trade and Industry Ministry and also talking global politics and what the US wants. But if we have a political divide, it should not come to play and we should be overshadowed by DA interest in politics. If there are missions that are in Pretoria that want to invest in Pretoria, will not align in terms of what the DA wants, will align in terms of opportunities that we're creating as a capital city, and will not hurt our sovereign relations with any of the countries that are housed here in Pretoria.
All right. Celia, what are you most concerned about? And also, if Tshwane opens up the process and invites people to lease the building and no one comes forward, will you be comfortable with Tshwane handing this, city hall over to the Iranians?
So, Clement, essentially, if we're looking for a partner to help renovate historical buildings, or whether it be City Hall or any other buildings in the city, let's open up the process. Let's do what you there suggest we do. we put out a request for proposals, or we put out a tender, and we invite a broad spectrum of people to make a contribution. The odds are that if that invite is properly set up, you will get South African businesses, developers, NGOs, other interested parties, including people interested in the preservation of historical buildings, to make a contribution. We are uncomfortable with the city hall, a symbol of government of the city, of South African sovereignty, as we've said, being turned into the cultural center of another country. And yes, Clement, we've got to be honest. What are the touch points between South Africa and Iran? We are a constitutional democracy that values the freedom of the individual, including women. Iran is a theocratic dictatorship. We don't have a significant trading relationship with Iran. The ANC certainly has got a close relationship with Iran. That has complicated our international relations, especially at a very difficult time. You've just had a discussion with the Minister of Trade and Industry, where we've agreed that the United States is aggrieved about South Africa's position for things other than trade, essentially political considerations. Now, you can have your views about that, but, taking the Iranian embassy for a tour of City Hall as a first response to their request for a site for a cultural center at this critical time, probably not the best idea. But I'm quite sure that if we follow an open-ended, proper process, invite different parties, we can retain the City Hall for the people of Tswane in South Africa without turning it into the cultural center of a foreign government.